Honor someone we all love and we cherish, and we're going to be saying more about that, but also just so we can have a different kind of fellowship and frankly just have some fun.
Well, I'm having fun.
I am too.
And of course, the person that we're here to honor tonight is Don Benton, our pastor and friend who has dedicated the last 15 years of his life to serving our church and God and us at Lovers Lane United Methodist Church. We've even let Don set the theme for tonight's program,
That's
An
right.
Evening with a Heart.
That's right. And you can see the little booklets that you have there. And Don said, and we've all heard Don say many of these things, but we've also heard Don quote John Wesley, "If your heart is as my heart," etc. Well, we're going to hear a lot of heart tonight, and a lot of hearts are going to come together. We're going to have several live guests. We're going to have some surprises, too, for Don. We're going to have just a couple of them, Don, I promise, brother. It's just going to be a couple of small surprises that we're going to have. The family's already warned me to go easy on you tonight. But we're also going to have some honest analysis of our pastor from some folks who were encouraged to speak up on videotape. So that's all I had. But first, before we get into that, for our invocation, here's the Reverend S.M. Wright.
The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captive, and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised. Yes, to preach the acceptable year of the Lord. Thank God for the preacher. Dr. Don Benton's years of service is not only at the Lovers Lane United Methodist Church, but Dallas, the whole Texas, America, the world. Thank God for the gospel he preaches, and his family who is by his side. This wonderful congregation who have supported him in this ministry. We've come to join the psalmist when he admonishes us to give thanks. Yes, we've come to show our gratitude for a dedicated, committed, loyal, faithful, powerful gospel preacher and pastor. May the God of heaven dispatch the guardian angel to protect he and his family as he continued to proclaim the good news of God. Thy bounty for physical strength, we thank thee, O God. In the name of Jesus we pray.
It's a wonderful day. It's so good to have people who have warm hearts they want to share with people. That makes it something special about Lovers Lane. That when strangers come, there's a feeling of at-homeness, that something is here that helps them feel their kinship with God. And hopefully my sermon encourages them to claim it. I love sharing life with you.
The most memorable thing Don has ever said to me is when he agreed to take the job as pastor of this church.
Well, Don always makes a statement to claim your faith.
We have some pictures of Don and me picking a stone out of the Jordan River that now is embedded in the baptismal font.
I think what I'll always remember about Don is the word possibility.
And Don said grace. That to me is a very important part of my life.
When he preaches and talks about having an attitude of gratitude.
I would like to say that Don has always told all of us that we're all ministers.
Well, I've been on 2 foreign trips with Don to the Holy Land.
It's wonderful to be a part of this special anniversary celebration for Don Benton. One of the kindest, most caring, most loving persons I've ever met in my lifetime. He was kind of my introduction to Dallas. On my first Sunday night in Dallas, on a long weekend, it was a July 4th weekend in 1985, I turned on the radio, and across the airwaves came this wonderful, warm voice a great preacher who never permitted his humanness to be lost in the message. In fact, his humanness became part of the message. And I've listened with regularity to his messages ever since. That was the wonderful welcome that he brought to me. Soon after that, we met. And we've worked on many, many wonderful things since then together. And it has been a blessing to get to know him. He's a man of profound faith. On the one hand, it's a simple faith. Don doesn't burden it with excesses of philosophical or theological trappings. It's a faith in God. It's a faith in God as he understands it and preaches it, and most important of all, lives it. But at the same time, it's a very profound faith, because it is an understanding of the fullness of humanness and of human error, an understanding of the loving God who calls us all back somehow to the source from whence we come. And because it's so simple and profound and so loving, Don has room in his heart for everyone. Jews, Muslims, Christians, any human being who walks is very, very closely associated with him. And so he's been a kind of mentor in a way. He'll hate that term because he'll see it as an older, younger relationship, but it isn't. It's a mentor of a colleague who shares fully and equally in the message and in the life of service. And that's him in the most wonderful and extraordinary kind of way. So Don and Rosemary, enjoy this wonderful night and this wonderful anniversary. You are an inspiration. You are a man who cares and who's taught me to care even more deeply and more profoundly. Happy anniversary, Don. Many, many more in health and in strength. We love you.
Don likes to call Lover's Lane the church with a heart. And if a church really has heart, it reaches beyond its immediate congregation and into the community. Through Don's leadership, Lover's Lane has done exactly that, setting up care centers and shelters for youth, children, and family. And by the way, while we're talking about family, Tracy, I want to set the record straight. Even though my last name is Brown, I am not related to Murphy Brown.
Frankly, Glo, it wouldn't make any difference to Don. He'd take you and your baby. I think it would make no difference. Glo's right, though. We couldn't begin to list all of the good work that's done in our community under Don's leadership. Special programs for older adults, the largest singles ministry in our area, food and clothing drives, the most recent, of course, with the hurricane victims, our hospital ministries, so many things, and intervention programs, too, that put lives back together.
And then there's the Promise House and Trinity River Mission. We have a special guest with us tonight who has some things she'd like to say about community services. Please welcome the former Dallas Mayor, the Honorable Annette Strauss.
Thank you very much, and good evening to you all. And I want you to know I really do appreciate the fact that Roger Meyer invited me to come and be a part of this very, very important evening to honor Don Benton. You know, I think everybody here will agree that Dallas is just a really great city and probably the best city anywhere. I really do believe that. And like all great cities, we face a lot of challenges, we have a lot of problems, but sometimes, somehow rather, because of people like Don Benton, these challenges translate into great opportunities. Don Benton, caring, concerned, and these concerns and this great care consistently exhibits itself in so many ways, like always being there when someone needs a friend with whom to share his or her burdens, and of course his active leadership in so many worthwhile causes in our city. Tonight, I want to speak for two of these programs which were just mentioned, programs and groups of which Dallas is very proud and most appreciative because they've helped thousands of people. The Trinity River Mission in West Dallas and Promise House. Through the leadership of Lover's Lane United Methodist Church adopted the Trinity River Mission as a special outreach program in 1978. volunteers have helped provide a variety of support programs for families who live in one of our city's poorest neighborhoods. And one of its major objectives is to keep our children in school, and we all know how important that is. And through afternoon tutors and mentors in the Believe and Achieve program, children receive the kind of academic help and supportive friendship that motivates them to want to stay in school and good grades. And it's really so rewarding that many of these children go on to college. The Trinity River Mission has made life so much better in this community in West Dallas. And as one mother said, "I'm just so happy when my children and I come here. For me, the mission is everything." And also with Don's encouragement, in 1984, Lovers Lane Methodist founded Promise House to provide a residential haven for homeless runaway, and yes, throwaway teenage young people when no one else will take them in. Dallas is just so fortunate to have this caring congregation and the leadership and the vision of such a very special human being as Don Benton. I can personally tell you that during my tenure as mayor, many times I called on Don Benton, and he was always there to help me do the right thing. We're so proud of you, Don. You have reached out and touched the lives of so many in our great city. We deeply appreciate you. We sincerely respect you, and we love you so very much. Thank you.
He and I skied, and so now he refers to me as his skiing buddy.
The youth were requested to give a bunch of questions to Don Benton, and one of the questions, and he used these later in his sermon, and one of the questions that he used, which I was actually surprised he put in, and I was rather pleased, was the question, did Adam and Eve have navels?
Seeing Don stuff chubby or marshmallows into his mouth, trying to say chubby bunnies, is a sight that he'll remember for a long time.
The kids like coming, and they like to go into the service and hear Don. He has a message for everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Benton.
He said that if his kids would simply grow up instead of age.
Thank you, Dr. Benton.
What's special about Dr. Benton is we have a pair of twins that he said that they were the first ones that he's ever baptized in all his years of preaching. It was pretty special.
Hello. Wasn't that special? Don't you just love that Troy Duncan? For those of you who don't know me, I'm the church lady. And we're here today to honor little Donnie Ray Benton. I've known little Donnie Ray since he was just a little wee pup, just knee-high to a grasshopper. Donnie, 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 Donnie. We're proud of ourselves, aren't we, Donnie? And we know where pride comes from. We know it comes from Satan. Well, I'll never forget that Sunday night long ago over in East Texas at a small Methodist church. It was a Sunday evening. Myrtle and I were sitting there in our comfy little pew when little Donnie Ray Benton ran up the aisle at the end of the service to get saved, we thought, from sin and the eternal flames of hell and turn away from Satan. Well, there he was, and he said he'd been called to preach. Myrtle turned to me and she said, "Well, I didn't hear a thing, did you?" And I said I didn't either. I told Donnie Ray if he was going to preach that he must get very, very pious. He had to lose the cowboy boots. And he had to preach about our friend, the Prince of Darkness, Satan. So little Donnie Ray Benton, now he's the big pastor of Lovers Lane United Methodist Church, never has followed my advice. All these years, he's been preaching all these things about grace and goodness, and never once do you hear anything about Oh, you know what terrible sinners we are and how terrible all of us are, and we all know how bad we are, but little Donnie Ray just keeps talking about how good we are and that God loves us. And I just wish that Don would follow my advice once and preach more about our friend, Lucifer, Beelzebub, the Prince of Darkness, our friend, you know him well. Could it be Satan? Well, Don, congratulations on your 15 years at Lover's Lane. We love you, and you are very, very special.
Oh, now wasn't that special? Clayton Oliphant, I just wish all of you could have seen it from the rear like we did. I mean, those legs. But I guess we've often wondered where Don got the inspiration for that special moral leadership that he has, and now we know.
I tell you, I'm a little concerned about Clayton, though. He's been running around in that dress all day long. I don't think we'll be able to get him out of it. So. But actually and seriously, Don learned a lot about moral leadership during all those years he spent at Perkins Theological Seminary at SMU. We all know what a wonderful preacher he is. Maybe you don't know that Don has also taught preaching at Perkins, passing along invaluable guidance to aspiring young ministers.
Dr. Benton has been deeply involved with SMU over all these years, and he recently received a well-deserved honor for all of those patient hours. And here to tell us about it, let's welcome the distinguished president of SMU, Dr. Kenneth Pye.
I first met Dr. Benton on the day after I was elected president of SMU. Indeed, the first speaking engagement which I had in this city was when he invited me to share his pulpit for a few moments at Lover's Lane. And I remember that day very well. At that time, I did not know him, nor did I know what he'd already done for SMU, nor could I even guess what he would continue to do for SMU. He received his Doctor of Ministry degree in 1974, and I've checked his transcript, and he completed all the hours. Subsequently, he has served on the Dean's Council, the Senate, and has returned to the school as professor of preaching in our lay ministers school. During the last 4 years, he has performed an especially valuable service as a member of the Trustees Standing Committee on Student Affairs. Now, the Board of Trustees has a number of committees: academic affairs, finance, investments, building and grounds. But I can assure you that student affairs is where the action is. All of our committees have students and faculty and alumni as well as trustees. And although it may be a shock to you, the perspective of our students are not always the perspectives of those of persons of my age. And the trustees depend on the Student Affairs Committee both to understand our students, to appreciate their viewpoints, and sometimes to jawbone with them so that we can reach some kind of reasonable answer to something that could be an impasse in the hands of a lesser breed of men and women. Don has fulfilled that function magnificently. As a result, we have been able to wrestle through most of the problems that concern our youngsters. Not that they will go away. I expect they will all be back again this year. But one does not seek solutions for all time. One is quite happy if one wins a victory for the day. And as a result of his kindness, his humaneness, and I think because the young people on that committee realize that he has their best interest at heart, we've been able to accomplish a great deal. It was this combination of loyalty and dedication and his example as a distinguished Christian pastor that motivated the Alumni Association of Southern Methodist University in 1991 to award him the highest award that the university gives to an alumnus, the Distinguished Alumnus Award. It was an honor to present it to him that evening. It is an honor to remember it this evening. He's a great man, and SMU is very proud of him.
And Don said, love leaves more than death takes away.
He always gives me a big bear hug, and I love that.
I just know that he's such a very caring person.
I think some of the most special words that Don has said were to my father.
That faith saves us, not religion. You cannot buy God.
He said the only way to know God is through faith.
He's always there, and he is such a caring person and a wonderful pastor.
He says, I may not always be right, but I'm never in doubt.
But Don said he has a photographic memory.
I just picture him as a strong, kind of quiet man, and exuding really a lot of leadership in a quiet manner.
Being a member of this church is a full-time job, and that it's also full-time rewarding, and we love Don for that. We really do.
And we think about, and Don said, I'll never forget, so you'd like to be on a committee.
And every time I hear him say the words, if your heart is as my heart, then take my hand and we'll do wonderful things together.
Well, we told you earlier this evening that this was going to be a night where we would see a lot of heart. We've seen some of it. But also I think that it's a night that's going to be full of a number of surprises and presentations to Don.
You know, it's really difficult to be around Don without some of that infectious love rubbing off on us. A church with a heart needs a pastor with a heart, and we have him. Now, to make another special award, we have another distinguished member of Lover's Lane Methodist Church, Mr. Cadillac Man himself, Roger Meyer.
Thank you, Glo. Thank you very much. And thank you, Betty Jenkins. All of you have on this table this marvelous collection of quotes from Don's Thursday morning classes, and boy, are they something. I was happy, however, that they didn't include some of his golf quotations. I want to just, you know, he loves golf. He's a two-handicapper. That's distance and direction. And, but I want to tell you a little story and get a quote out of it. That one day Jim Myers was playing golf with Don, and they were doing very well, except on one tee, Don hit a very long drive. Unfortunately, it was in a different direction than it ought to be. So Jim said, looked at him rather quizzically and said, don't preachers ever have any cuss words? Don't they ever say any bad word? Don said, well, Jim, let me just explain it to you this way. Preachers have their cuss words numbered. Mine are numbered from 1 to 18. Well, Jim said, well, what number was that? He said, Jim, that was all 18. Now, on behalf of the committee, I know that you all will want me to do this, and it's a joy to do it. I want to tell you that. Won't you say hello and thank Bishop and Mrs. Hart for being here tonight. It's very special to have them here. They're right down here in front with the district superintendent, Dale and Mrs. Hunt. And then I want to say thanks again to our mayor, Annette Strauss, Steve Bartlett in a little while, and Reverend S.M. Wright. That fella can pray. He doesn't need one of these things, does he? And, of course, Dr. Pye, and on the film that you've seen, Senator Benson, little while Mr. Schuler, and Rabbi Zimmerman. Rabbi Zimmerman will be speaking to us this Sunday evening. Now, you couldn't do this. You all have already seen some of what's going on, and I know that that our committee wants me to say a special thanks to those folks right back up there, if you all turn around, while I call off the names of our great video crew. They're Tom Crocker, Harley Engel, Jack Brannon, Marilyn Jones, Mark Mills, Mike Moore, and Ryan Cotton. Let's give him a big hand. And I know you all will enjoy this, and you'll be right along with me when I tell you nothing here tonight would be the same without these two. Tracy, well, I don't know where Tracy is, but here's Glow. Here's Tracy. Oh, yeah, I do know where he is. You'll find out in a minute. This sling really is up here. I don't want you all to worry about the sling. I just wore it for a purpose. I wore it to tell you that all you have to do is hang around this committee that we have. Because believe me, folks, they know how to make it happen. I'd like to call off this committee, and when I do afterwards, if you'll just give them a big hand. First, Karen Matthews. All the marvelous entertainment, or the food and the arrangements you have tonight, Karen did that. Molly Zarcone, what you've seen here on the videos, she produced this program and did the artwork that you see right here behind us. Pat Strickland. Pat will have her special touch at the reception Sunday evening at church. And Elizabeth Price, Rosemary Coyle, Elizabeth Birch, Nancy Hunt, Jim Myers, Yule Crosby, and we couldn't have done it either without Charles Allen. All of them did so much. Now, let me close by just telling you the toughest thing this committee had to do. We had to get over this hurdle, and we didn't know how to do it, but we did. Again, we wanted to come up with a gift for Don, a gift that had some kind of very special symbolism that everyone in this audience and that great congregation would understand and know about. And again, we went back to John Wesley. If your heart is as my heart, give me your hand. And who do you think that inspiration led to? Elizabeth Price got a hold of that. I'm going to tell you, she really got a hold of it. And she personally designed and made this beautiful stole that Tracy's going to bring out, and Glow's going to help, and you're going to see what this symbolism is. Look at those hands on there, the hands of Don that have reached out all across this community and indeed around the world. Elizabeth, where's Elizabeth? I wanted to stand up and so we can acknowledge her. Well, wherever she is, you'll know that Elizabeth Price did a great job. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Ray.
If your heart is as my heart, take my hand. If the storms rage in your mind, let's stand together. If the pain down in your soul is almost unbearable, turn to me, let's turn to God together.
If your rainbow has vanished, look through my tears. If the thunder of your loneliness drowns out your songs, and the winter has driven the springtime from your soul, here's my heart, here are my hands, they are yours. Let's turn to God, the God who loves us. Let's take His hand.
Take His hand.
Won't let go. Let's turn to God, the God who made us. He loves you.
He loves you.
He loves me.
He loves me.
Take my hand. loves me. Take my hand. There's a light in the darkness, see it there.
There's a hope in the nighttime of your despair, and the song on your lips was our song in the rain. I am you,
And I am you. We are one. Let's turn to God, the God who loves us. Let's take His hand.
take His hand.
Oh, let go. Let's turn to God, the God who made us. He loves you.
He loves you.
He loves me.
He loves me.
Take my hand. He loves you. He loves me. Take my